Hello and welcome back to Humans and Society. This video focuses on the topic intersubjectivity under Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person. In philosophy, the term subject refers to a person or a conscious being, while object is a thing in reality or the real world. To describe something objectively means to look at a situation as it presents itself, just a chronological telling of events, no more, no less. To describe something subjectively means to give your own interpretation of events based on your own previous experiences, injecting to it your beliefs and preferences. Adding the prefix inter, which means among or between, intersubjectivity means the sharing of thoughts and ideas of two or more people based on their personal realities. It is not quite like empathy, where you try to put yourself in someone else's situation in order to understand them. It is more of a mental connection, where we accept that we are different, but it is okay, and we can still live together in peace. One of the first philosophers to talk about intersubjectivity is Confucius. Confucius is the westernized name of Kung Fu Tzu, which translates to Master Kong. His real name is Kong Chi, and he earned the title Master or Fuzi when he traveled throughout the Chinese Empire, teaching about moral values that could enable rulers to govern justly. His teachings were compiled by his students in a book called Analects. According to Confucius, there are five constant relationships. First, between the ruler and his people. Second, between the father and his son, or parent-child relations. Third, between the husband and wife, or spousal relations. Fourth, between the elder brother and the younger brother, or sibling relations. And fifth, between friends. Confucius says that a man should strive to be junzi. Junzi literally translates to gentleman and refers to a superior, virtuous man. A junzi is a man worthy of his position and title. In order to be junzi, he must have ren and de. Ren is benevolence or love for others, and de is virtue. The virtues that are referred to in de are zhong, xiao, li, and shu. Zhong is loyalty, especially to the emperor. Xiao is filial piety or knowing your place in a relationship as superior or subordinate and acting accordingly. Li is ritual propriety. This is not just with regards to praying to their ancestors, but also the social norms like marriages, funerals, receiving guests, or addressing people properly. Shu is reciprocity or self-reflection, which governs our actions towards others. This is where the golden rule comes from. Do not do unto others what you do not desire for yourself. Martin Buber is a Jewish existentialist philosopher from Vienna, Austria. In his book Ich und Du, or I and Thou, he conceives the human person in his wholeness, a concrete existence related to the world. Buber's philosophy is about the human person as the subject, who is a being different from things or from objects. The human person experiences his wholeness not through himself, but in virtue of his relation to others. The human person establishes the world of mutual relations and experiences. The human person as subject has a direct and mutual sharing of selves. This signifies a person-to-person or subject-to-subject relation, which includes acceptance, sincerity, concern, respect, dialogue, and care. The human person is not just a being in the world, but a being with others, or a being in relations. Karol Wojtyla was born in Poland. He was elected into papacy in 1978, making him the 264th pope. He took the name John Paul II, and he was considered a great pope during his lifetime. In his encyclical letter, Fides et Ratio, or Faith and Reason, he says that a human person is one who acts consciously, has a will, and has self-determination. For Wojtyla, action reveals the true nature of the human person. Through participation, the person is able to fulfill himself. The human person is oriented towards relation and sharing in the communal life of the common good. We are responsible to our neighbors as we are to ourselves. Martin Heidegger is a German philosopher widely acknowledged to be one of the most original and controversial thinkers of the 20th century. In his unfinished treatise, Being and Time, Heidegger says that humankind is a conversation, or a dialogue, that is attuned to each other and to whatever they are thinking about. A conversation which Heidegger envisions is creative, poetic, and deep. This conversation allows humanity to exist as more than entities. A conversation attempts to articulate who and what we are, not as particular individuals, but as human beings who care about more than information and gratification. Unfair though it is, there are groups of people living in this world as underprivileged, and we will look at some of these groups in an attempt to understand them. The first group we will look at are persons with disabilities, or PWDs. There are 14 categories of PWDs. Those with autism, deafblindness, deafness, developmental delay for 3 to 9-year-old children, emotional disturbance like depression, anxiety, insomnia, post-traumatic stress, and those that are suicidal, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, previously called mental retardation, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment like scoliosis, amputation, polio, and cerebral palsy, other health impairments like asthma, diabetes, epilepsy, heart condition, cancer, cystic fibrosis, and ADHD. Specific learning disabilities like dyslexia and dyscalculia, speech or language impairment like stuttering, lisp, and impaired articulation, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment, including blindness. Negative attitudes of the family and community towards PWDs may add to their poor academic and vocational outcomes. Parents need to restructure their lives in order to accommodate the needs of their child with disability. Community sensitivity through positive and supportive attitudes towards PWD is also an important component of their development. Through these, a person can look at himself not as disabled, but as differently abled. The country has laws to protect the PWDs, such as Executive Order Number 417, also known as the Magna Carta for Disabled Persons. However, these laws are hardly implemented. The second underprivileged group we will look at are the poor, whether urban or rural. The notion of poverty is multidimensional. Each of these dimensions has the common characteristic of representing deprivation that encompasses income, health, education, empowerment, and working condition. The most common measure of the underprivileged is income poverty, which is defined in terms of consumptions of goods and services. The World Bank categorizes poverty in two levels: poor and extremely poor. Those who are living below $2 per day, or 100 pesos, is considered poor, while those living below $1.25, or 65 pesos per day, are extremely poor. There is a growing recognition that income poverty is not the only important measure of deprivation. Human rights are also relevant to issues of global poverty and is focused on shortfalls in basic needs. The Church in its pro-poor stance, is constantly challenged, wherein justice is being denied for sectors like labor, farmers, fisherfolk, indigenous peoples, and victims of calamity. The third underprivileged group is the women's sector. In 1712, Jean-Jacques Rousseau said that women should be educated to please men. He believes that women should be useful to men, take care, advise, console, and render men's lives easy and agreeable. This has been the widespread notion of patriarchal societies for centuries. Mary Wollstonecraft, in her book Vindication on the Rights of Women, argued that such education would produce women who were mere propagators of fools. She believes that women should be united to men in wisdom and rationality. Society would allow women to attain equal rights given to men. Further, women should not be valued only for their beauty, because beauty fades. Wollstonecraft maintains that women must learn to respect themselves. She stressed that women should not marry for support, but they should earn their own bread. All the philosophers discussed talk about the same type of relation, a dialogue of human beings based on mutual sharing of selves, acceptance, and sincerity. Intersubjectivity provides the rational recognition that we should not think of ourselves as more privileged than others, because we are all living in the same world. We are responsible for more than what becomes of us. We are also responsible for what becomes of others. The ideas discussed in this lesson are based on the content standards of the Department of Education. Thank you for watching and see you in the next lesson.